Hey there, everybody! It's Eternal Snowman here with another episode of TLT stuff, and I am very excited because it is the eve of TLT, and of course, I would be excited. I'm one of the biggest fans of this tournament, and I'm just super excited to get into it. And so, here are the TLT II power rankings done by myself, and I got some help from London and MJ. And I'm just going to be going through everything. This is actually based off kind of similarly to the bdov one that came out somewhat recently, but um, I just love TLT, and also watch out because pretty soon myself and Plaz are going to be doing a podcast together talking about the week. Well, I think Plaz will be doing it, but I'll be getting someone else on here to do a podcast about the week one matchups, and it'll be a weekly kind of thing that we do similar to what we did last week with all the matchups, and it'll be really fun. But without further ado, let's get into the power rankings. So before we get into it, I'll explain how I did the rankings, and then I'll give a quick disclaimer as to I don't want to offend anyone. So first off, the rankings are split up by my personal opinion, so it's going to be swayed. I definitely don't know everybody on this list, especially when it gets to the lower end. It really does clutter. I feel like this one, there are a lot more unknown players to myself. I at least don't know like 10 or 20 of the players out of the 64, but I do feel like the top end is very, very good this year, and it's really good to be able to see so many great players come out and play TLT. That said, at the bottom end, I don't know a lot of these players, so that's a quick disclaimer, and I don't want anyone to get offended. This is just for fun, and I do think that everyone has a chance to upset one another, but I'm just going to be talking about what I think that the best players are. And before we get started with the S and A ranks, I'm going to say that the very top end is very close. I think everyone from the highest player, which is Ham, and Fristo in the S rank, to everyone in the A rank probably isn't separated that much by skill. I just measured them as to separate them as to see how well they fit into the TLT format. So heading into the highest rank, S rank, is Ham and Fristo. I think the reason why they're so highly rated is because both of them have proven to be amazing in multiple tiers, as well as Ham and Fristo being, I think, much better than everyone as to showing a overall game knowledge of being just fantastic. And part of this has to do with the fact that they play multiple different tiers at such a high level and are able to take advantage of the format very well. So on top of the lock format thing, the lock format doesn't necessarily help them that much as compared to some of the other players. However, they are very good at, because they are so flexible at different tiers, they can pick the skill difference tier that is the highest, and then also win perhaps even their opponent's lock tier if they're not like a top tier main. So a lot of the players towards like the B plus and lower ranks will likely even get 2-0'd by Ham or Friso because they're just so good at so many tiers that even the best tier of some of the other players here is still worse than Friso or Ham's tier. So there is no skill differential there. So that is what puts them in the S rank and why they are so good in my personal takes, favorites to win the tour. That said, that's also like not a risky move to make. Like most people can agree that these two are probably the best players coming into this TLT. So we can move on to the next rank, A plus rank. And these players are just a cut below the S rank players. I think they have one thing or multiple things that make them really great, and then perhaps some things that hold them back. So SMB I'll start with because this is perhaps the most polarizing player, and many people would probably nominate SMB for the S rank, and I've heard a lot of talk about SMB being S rank. However, when I look at the rankings and look at how he compares to Ham and Friso, it seems very difficult for me to justify personally to get him in the S rank. That is because SMB, while being an amazing player, he is mainly very, very good at doubles. Now, that's not to say that SMB is not good at other tiers. He is still very, very good. However, he is not to the cut of Friso or Ham, so when he plays against a player like Friso or Ham, he will probably win doubles. However, it's not even, it's more likely, like I would say that Ham or Friso will win 2-1 9 out of 10 times, and maybe the last time SMB wins. And then going to a best of 5 format, which will enter as top 8, then SMB will probably lose 3-1 like 8 out of the 10 times, and then we'll go 3-2 like 1 or 1.5 times. And it's like, as the format goes on, SMB is going to be in a diminished role. That said, against everyone else other than Ham and Friso, who aren't good enough to take advantage of this, who aren't like good enough at all those tiers, it's hard to say. Like, he is very good at cleaning up the lower ranks, because that free win in doubles does put him pretty far ahead, basically, as nobody in this tour is even close to him in doubles. I think Friso is the only one who could potentially challenge him. Like, I would say I'm probably like the third best doubles player, and I'm definitely myself or London are like the third best doubles player, but we're not close to SMB at all. Fristo is the closest, but he's still not that close. So he's very good in that sense. However, he is held back by the fact that his other tiers aren't to the same level as Hammer Friso. He is definitely very good though, and a cut above some of the other players I'm going to mention in the A ranks. So Ziri or Snow Jinri is also in the A ranks, and I'm also going to talk about him and Plaz together. They are both very good players, similar to Ham and Friso. I think they're just a little bit below, but they have a similar kind of structure to their like skill levels, as in they're good at many different tiers. They can utilize some of the other tiers. For Ziri especially is able to play some tiers that most people can't, like PU and Mono, which gives him sort of an advantage as to the ban phase and also skill differential and locking phase. But he is very good at stuff like UU, RU, and he has a large spread of good tiers and is very solid in general. I think Plaz is very similar in that sense. However, he doesn't play the plays like off meta tiers, I guess. However, he also has experience and shown that he can play at a high level in many different tiers outside of the standard, or whatever you want to call it, tiers of the TLT. So I expect that if he does put his best effort forward, that he can also put forward a great effort and learn those tiers that aren't that he may not necessarily be known for, because he is that good. And Jordan, I think, falls under a similar vein. However, his main advantage is that he has a very good OU, one of the best in the tournament for sure. I would say him, Ham, Friso, and Mysterious M are probably the best OU players in this tour, and then maybe some of the other players later on, but maybe Ominous Draco, but we'll have to see how much he has, how good he is at OU right now. But Jordan definitely is one of the best OU players right now, and very, very good at that. And he is definitely one of those players where I think his general skill level is very good. I think if I had to say, he's kind of like a mix between Ziri and SMB in the sense that he can play many different tiers. However, he's really just good at OU. Then moving on to the A ranks, Trace is the first A ranker. I originally had Trace at A+. However, he doesn't really have the same. He's kind of like Jordan in the sense that he has a main really good tier, or in this case 2 tiers, which is RU and LC. However, he doesn't really have the general knowledge that someone like Ziri, Plaz, or Ham or Friso has. However, he is definitely one of the best RU players, probably the best RU player in this tournament, and a top tier LC player as well. And when you consider his other general knowledge, similar to Jordan, I think he is very good. I think he's just a cut below Jordan though, however. Ominous Draco, I'm going to say, is very, very good. Similar to Jordan, he has a very good OU. I think he's a little bit worse than Jordan at OU, but he does have a good UU as well. But the main thing holding him back is his other tiers. He doesn't have that same knowledge as for other tiers. However, he is a very, very skilled player, so if he does put in the effort, then I can see him doing very well as well. And Serene's Grace, I'm going to compare similar to Trace, I think, in that sense. Very good at multiple things, and can do the every tier if he wants to. but I don't think he has that same experience. He doesn't have those weird tiers experience, and he hasn't shown as much of the um, differentiation between. So the differentiation here is like some of the top tier players I think have shown the ability to adapt to other tiers that perhaps they're not used to at a high level. So Trace, Omnis Draco, Serene's Grace, while they are very good at those other tiers, they haven't shown the ability to adapt at a high level for these other tiers. And so I will say Mysterious M is a very similar case, very good at Ubers and OU, but not necessarily the highest level at some of these other tiers like Mono or PU or like these lesser known tiers. I mean, I do think that he is good enough to play those tiers at a high level, but I don't think he's there yet. The main thing being yet, and so it will really mainly come down to preparation and as the tour goes on, how well he can show these tiers. Now, I'm not going to talk about myself that much, but I'll just say that I put myself in the A rank just because bdov ranked me there, as well as some other people said that this was a good ranking place for me. I think that that's fine. I have one of the better Ubers along with Mysterious M, and I have some knowledge in other tiers, but not at a high level. So I'll see where this can take me, but just watch out. Me versus SMB in the first round is going to be a huge highlight match. It's going to be a rematch from last TLT where I lost. But I'm going to be very excited to play that, and I hope you guys enjoy watching my analysis of that set. But we'll move on to the rest of the players. Luthier is up next. He is a Grand Slam um, playoffs player. I just barely missed, unfortunately. But Luthier, congrats to him. He made the Grand Slam playoffs, and he has a very solid spread. The only thing I'm worried about for Luthier is that he doesn't necessarily have the best weaker tiers, stuff like his Ubers. I don't know how good he is at PU or those tiers, so we'll have to see. But I definitely do expect him to do well because he does have kind of like that Ham Frisso thing, but I think he has more of a defined weakness than them. So moving on to the A minus, Ninja Dog is going to be the beginning of this list. A very good LC player. I know that he can do other tiers, but I don't know how good it will be compared to some of the other ranks. I think A minus is the first time we start seeing some big differentiation. I think from the top of S to the bottom of A, like I mentioned earlier, I think have not that much separation. All of these players are very, very good and can win this tournament, I think. After A minus, I think all of these players are capable of making a very far run, but I don't think that they can legitimately win the tournament without some major luck component. So like that's like where my differentiation between A and A minus is here, because I don't actually think that these players outside of the below A can actually have a legitimate shot at winning the tournament. I think they could make the finals maybe. With some luck, they could maybe make top 8, top 4, whatever. But well, I don't really know about the finals. Sorry, I don't really know about winning the tour. So Ninja Dog, big boy as well. OU, UU, he is good. I mean, like I think he's very solid in general, but how good is he compared to some of the better players? I'm not too sure. His main boon is his OU and UU, but he is also very solid all around. Neomon, he has a very good NU player. And then the rest, like I know he's done a lot of different OM stuff and different things, so I think he can definitely show up more. I actually had Neomon higher, but I was suggested to put him down, so I don't really know. Like Neomon, I think, has the potential to be one of those best players, and I think I'll say A minus with the caveat that he could become better than this. Akiko Yoshino, very, very great player, underrated, to be honest, just generally very good. NU, UU are probably his best tiers. Well, actually, he's name changed to Snowfall. I don't know if he has the Snowfall name on Smogon yet, but yeah, very good player, very, very good.
I would say he's very solid all around, but his best are NU, OU. And so I expect great things from him. Naruto Sage, he hasn't been that much active in Mons, but he's still very good. One of the best all-around players here. But I'm ranking him a little bit lower just because I don't know how active he will be in Mons in general. So UU and OU are his best tiers probably, as well as RU. And then Satsat, BLT legend. He is one of the best players in his own tier, which is RU. However, the format doesn't necessarily favor him. I don't think he's good enough to really overcome the neutral tier, as I'll call it, which is the one that will be selected after the tier that is played other than the two locked tiers. So Satsat, while he is really good at RU, how good will he be compared to the other players in the higher ranks at the other tiers? And he is definitely very good though, so I do give him a benefit of the doubt. I've seen him play well in UU and OU as well in different tournaments, so I think he can be a very good player, but I don't think it's good enough to overcome the higher ranks. Now moving into the B plus ranks, this is where a pretty large jump will be happening. I think everyone in the B plus is a clear cut below the A minus ranks, in my opinion at least, and then everyone in the B plus and B ranks are somewhat close, and then everyone below B rank is a clear cut below everyone else. So I would say B plus, the potential to reach a top 8 is very much there for everyone in B plus. However, I think it will require some overperformance to some extent. So London is our first player, one of the better doubles players here. That said, though, I don't really think that he is that good at the general tiers. So while he will be very good at LC or doubles, depending on what he chooses to lock versus a certain player, it will also require him to beat his opponent in the neutral tier. And that is where it will mainly be a struggle for him because the neutral tier is one of the ones that is harder to justify, like especially in TLT. It's very important for you, and the differentiation here between the B plus players and the A minus players and higher is that I have a higher belief that the A minus plus players have the ability to win the neutral tier consistently, which is to say that the B plus players aren't necessarily a generalist, or their main tier isn't strong enough to justify them being that high. So in the case of London, I think his main tier is definitely good enough to be justified to be that high. However, I also don't think his neutral tier is good enough to be for him to be higher. So King of Crimea falls into a similar vein, but he is definitely one of the players that has a potentially upside. His main tier is a little bit worse than London's, but his neutral tier will be better. Peachy Clouds will have a pretty good. I mean, my stock on him has grown more and more as I've seen him play more in the BLTs and TLTs as of recently. I used to not be high on him as a player, but I think he's done more, like improved as time has gone on, and he has done well and can be good in mono. Is a good mono player and is actually pretty decent at some other tiers as well. So we'll just have to see how well he does. Twixtree, probably the best in this bunch of players in terms of overall skill, and his main tiers are NU and OU, and he's very, very good at those. I would say that his main tier is very high, but I'm not very sold on his neutral tier. So I'll have to see how well he does, but this is definitely one of the ones I'm going to be taking a little bit of a gamble on because most people would rate Twixtree higher. I do think that he is the best B plus or the B plus player that I could be the most wrong about. To say he could very well be an A tier player, but I don't know about his neutral tier. And I don't think, from what I've seen, that he can be the player that can adapt at a high level like Ham or Frisso can, or even when comparing to other A rank players like Trace or Serene's Grace. So moving on, Mitab falls in a similar vein as King of Crimea in the sense that he is going to have a pretty good neutral tier, which is to say he is a pretty good LC player. He is, when compared to some of the top LC players, not as good, specifically Serene's Grace, Ninja Dog, Luthier, and I think those are the main ones. Yeah, so those three are going to be much better than him, but he is just below there. I think he would be comparable to players like myself in London for LC. Um, but yeah, and then his neutral tier, similar to London, would be not that good. I think he's a little has the potential to be a little bit better with a different spread of tiers. Sam Spark, I think, falls into a similar vein. He definitely has the potential to be pretty good, but his neutral tier, I'm not too sure on. I'm not sold. His OU is pretty good, and he can play some other tiers as well. bdov is going to be more of a generalist here. Uh, bdov has a decent neutral tier, probably one of the best out of the B plus rankings because bdov does have a lot of different tiers that they like to play. Um, but I don't think that their main tier is going to be the best. So it'll be like RU, maybe OU. Like I'm not too sure what bdov is going to lock. And then like when compared to I think bdov is like a comparably like ham or frisso light, if you will. um Good at a lot of tiers but not elite. But the problem is that when you're just good at a lot of tiers, then maybe you're not good enough at a lot of tiers. So while bdov can take a lot of wins off the players that are below the B plus rank, it's much harder for bdov to take wins with players above even in the B plus rank or above the B plus rank. And then I actually have no idea how to pronounce this, but Chitanya or something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I probably did, but this guy is a mono player, very good, strong tier. I am not sure about their neutral tier, and I'm not sold that they can perform at a high level for the neutral tier. So mono is one of those tiers where I feel like if you come from a mono background, it's harder for you to integrate into the normal tiers because of how different they are. And perhaps you may think otherwise, but I feel like the mono has like a lot less of the team building aspect, and like from my experience in it, players who come from that background tend to have like a different mindset, which I don't really think is as well suited towards this kind of this kind of tournament. And so I don't think that he'll be good enough to compete with the higher ranks, but his definitely his main tier is very strong. One of the best mono players in this tournament for sure. And so moving on to the B rank, Little Lucky JN, pretty decent player all around. Their main tier maybe Ubers, doubles. I'm not too sure what they're going to lock, but definitely has been solid in the past leaderboard tournament events. So I do have some faith in them, and they've shown up in the past before. So Negatory is going to be next. Negatory, one of the Tours Room drivers, as well as a friend of mine. He is probably going to be locking RU or UU perhaps in his games. His issue is that he doesn't have the strongest main tier. His neutral tier is pretty decent. I would say he's comparable to someone like bdov, where he is pretty solid all around, but not exceptional at anything. Rosie Bear, I would say, has a pretty strong OU and UU, but outside of that is pretty limited, and I don't have faith that Rosie Bear can really beat the higher ranked players in their main and neutral tiers. And then Taylor, I've been told that he's one of the best in terms of skill wise. I've seen him play; he's pretty good. The main tier I've seen him play in is UU, and I think he has definitely the potential to beat everyone in this tier, or like a lot of players above him. But I don't know if he's going to be able to like show that he can compete at a high level for a lot of the strong tiers, or like neutral tiers and Gen 7 stuff. Like I've seen players like this before who haven't done well, like last TLT. Trade didn't do especially well in the newer metas, so it's really hard to say. And then King Leo, his doubles is good, very good, one of the best in the tournament. I think he's comparable to myself or London in terms of doubles. But I do also think that he lacks in other components. I don't think he's good enough in any of the other tiers. And while being like having a decent main tier, I think he's even he his neutral tier will not be good enough to like show up against a lot of the other players. Cam, I put in a similar position as someone like Chaitanya. Good mono player, but outside of that, relatively questionable. I think he's actually worse than well, I mean, he is worse than Chaitanya at mono as well. So I can't. His main tier is not that strong. Um, so moving on to B minus rank, and as I said before, B and B minus is where one of the biggest skill gaps is. I think everyone below B minus is not a real contender at all. I think below this is where it would be pretty surprising for anyone in the B minus rank to beat someone in the A minus plus ranks. So while in the B to B plus rank, I think there is decent upset potential. I think when you get below B minus, the upset potential is very low. Um, these players can make a decently deep run in the bracket. Perhaps one of them may make top 8 if they're lucky. I would say Toad is probably the one to look at to make a far run, but like I also don't think that they're necessarily good enough to do that. So it would take a massive overperformance from any of these players to really get to the higher ranks. And perhaps one of these, this tour is a breakout tour for one of these players. And I mean, if they prove me wrong, then I mean, good on you guys. And I'm not like out to get you for ranking you this low. I probably just don't know you or something like that. And I definitely will say that I don't know everyone here. So like, if you do indeed um, are kind of like offended or whatever by my ranking, then I hope you prove me wrong and show me up. I mean, and if you do, then congratulations, because I do definitely want to see people have more success in and have fun in TLT slash like just leaderboard events or tournament room events in general. So in the B minus rank, we have Tote, Spitfire, Arcanine, Huskies, Poison Adhesive, Vinest, Mian, PCD, Good, Plimsoil, Punks, and Havens. Now, Tote, I think, is definitely the biggest upside here. I think his kind of janky style is very good for generating upsets because he's not actually as bad as people will say he is. I think he's actually pretty decent and has the potential to generate a decent amount of upsets with his kind of janky sets, and potentially with some luck on his side, he definitely can do that. That said, I don't see him making a far run because of consistency. Like, he can't get lucky every single set he plays, right? So once like, he will probably lose to maybe the second best play. Like, if he doesn't if he like, he would need some luck to get pretty far in bracket. Spitfire Arcanine, I think, is a mono player. I don't think he's good enough to be considered in the higher ranks. Um, Huskies, I think, like, I don't know that much about him as well. Like, I'll just say that most of these players, the reason why they're rated this low, as opposed to higher, is because they, perhaps they'll show something like I said before about the main tier and the off tier, the neutral tier. Now, the assumption here is that basically, unless you're, unless the ranking difference is really high, I don't expect any of these players to really be able to win in both win their opponent's main tier. So like, the reason why Ham and Frisso are so high is because probably the only players that can legitimately challenge for winning the opponent's main tier, which is very, very impressive, by the way. Because of the way the format is set up, it's just set up so that you want to win your neutral tier. But unless the ranking is like, so the differences I made is between S and A rank. So everyone but in this rank, I think if any of the players played each other in this rank, then I would say that it's unlikely that it will not go to 3 games. Like, it would probably take some sort of luck or something to go on that we don't see a 3 game set, in which I mean by which I mean both players should be winning their main tiers, and then we'll be going to a neutral tier. That's why it's important to have a good neutral tier. But if we say take someone in the S tier, I do think that if they play someone in the A minus or B plus rank, it's possible that they win the main tier. So I think there has to be like a decently large amount of skill gap. So like if someone in the A rank, so like say Serene's Grace played someone in the B minus rank, which is a large amount of um, skill difference, I do think it's possible that they do in fact take that. They do in fact take the game into. Okay, one sec, just. Sorry, I have to do this real quick. All right. Apologies for that. And so then when moving on to the next rank, C plus, Mac Knife, Arsenine, Cole James Rhodes, Whimpering, Halamon, Hellray, Elgino 10, Momo Lover, Pidgeot Mega, Anime Sans, and Raj.shoot. Now, where I made some differentiation here is where I saw some potential in the B minus rank for actually being decent. The reason why they are ranked higher than perhaps some of the players below them is that I've seen something that's impressed me about them specifically, and I think that they could be dangerous players as opposed to players below them. I actually don't think I've seen anything at a significant level. So where B minus differentiates from C plus are those players. So for example, like Spitfire Arcanine versus like Anime Sans. So Spitfire Arcanine, he showed me potential in stuff like Mono and whatever versus Anime Sans, who like I have seen some things from him, but nothing too impressive. So this and then the difference between C plus and those lower is like the success that you have in Tours Room. So just by the fact that some of these players in C plus are that good in Tours Room and can win at a consistent level in Tours Room, puts them a little bit above the C and C minus ranks, who perhaps aren't necessarily the most dynamic players, and from what I've seen, aren't really the best. Now, that isn't to say that these players can't make a far run or can't upset. I just haven't seen it from them yet. So, players like LKA, PKD, or others are less suited towards the tournament meta because the ability to scout and stuff have put them in a worse position. And a lot of these players at the lower areas ranks qualified because of the way that the tours are set up, their scouting, that kind of stuff. So when you actually come into a best of series, it becomes harder for you to actually like just cheese your way through this with different things. And so it requires you to have a lot of flexibility and team building mechanics, or just have something else in there. And perhaps you're just extremely skilled, and that's why you can do that. But it just takes a different kind of player. So that's going to be about it for this TLT power rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry, we're gonna I know I didn't go through all the players in the bottom in detail. Mostly of that because I don't have that much to say about a lot of these players. I don't know them that well, or something else in there. But I do I just wanted to go through all the top ranks I had. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video on the power rankings. I had a ton of fun making it, and I'm just super excited for TLT 2 to just begin. Myself versus SMB is going to be a great match. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.